Batman 2 has been something I have talked about extensively on this channel. And judging by today's video, obviously, I'm not done. Because there has been some news that has dropped, and if you don't know, if you live under a rock, you may not know, but Scarlett Johansson is in talks to join Robert Pattinson in the Batman 2. Now, the Batman 2 is a movie that has been plagued with a lot of delays, and that has caused a lot of frustration, including myself, in the fan base. And, recently fans have been lucky because there's been quite a few updates. We've gotten rumors, at least, of a new cinematographer. There's been a filming date set, a release date, I believe. There's a lot of exciting news here. And some not so exciting news, like the fact that Zoe Kravitz was no longer returning. I'm not sure if that's 100% positively confirmed, but I will say it also does make sense, because if you've seen the first one, her ending, leads to her leaving Gotham. And not that she'll never return in this universe per se, but I do think it makes sense for the second one to not have her in it, just so we can kind of feel her absence. And I was wondering what they were going to do for, the villain and all this other stuff. But one thing I never thought about was, who would be the replacement kind of female lead, because the Batman 1 was really heavy on, men, from Commissioner Gordon to Batman, obviously, to Alfred and the whole GCPD and Riddler and Falcone. I mean, it was a lot. It was a man-heavy movie, and that's not a bad thing. But, with Batman especially, there's a lot of good and strong female characters. So when this news broke about Scarlett Johansson, a lot of people were excited. They were theorizing, oh, who's she going to play? And what's funny is a lot of people have jumped straight to villains, which, I cannot blame you. But today, I want to go over some of my top picks, or the top theories that I have heard for, who she's going to end up playing, because I think there's a lot of interesting, picks and some real exciting possibilities. So, number one, I want to start with Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy seems to be one of the most obvious picks, in my opinion. If you don't know, Poison Ivy is a character who appears in the comics and all throughout Batman. She's one of his, most well-known rogues. In her appearances, she's depicted as a doctor of botany turned eco-terrorist in Gotham. Given her powers that she attains, she has the ability to control all plant life. Empowered by an elemental force known as the Green, she does this. And she's, like I said, one of Batman's most notable villains by far, especially when you go to, the female villain route. She's obviously one of his strongest. And Scarlett Johansson makes sense for this pick, given the fact that, Poison Ivy is usually close to Batman's age. I think the only time they did a real drastic age difference was in the show Gotham. But, with that being said, I think they're going to go for someone who, is closer to Batman's age when it comes to his villains. And Scarlett Johansson's definitely, she fits that category. She has the look of Poison Ivy, because Poison Ivy, if you don't know, she's usually she does usually have a green hue to her skin. But, most people probably picture white woman, mid to late 30s, red hair, skinny to normal build. That's pretty much Scarlett Johansson. And that's the thing about her, though. Scarlett Johansson is a perfect, leading woman, because I feel like she's not generic, but she could fit a lot of roles, if that makes sense. She's not really crammed into a box where you're like, oh, well, it's clear she's only playing this she's kind of like, say, like a Glenn Powell, or a, even a Robert Pattinson. I mean, Robert Pattinson is in so many different wacky kind of roles. She could definitely be anything. However, I don't know if it will be Poison Ivy, just because of how supernatural she is. Like I said, I mean, she has literal powers. And, I could be wrong here, but I just don't think that this Batman universe is going in the supernatural powers route. Again, could be wrong, and honestly, I kind of hope I am because I really want Mr. Freeze for a villain or like Clayface, but or even Court of Owls. But we'll just have to wait and see really to see how wacky they're going to take this. Not wacky, but wild they're going to take this universe because the first one was obviously very, very grounded. So it makes it hard to just say, oh yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think it's Poison Ivy. Now, again, I would not be mad if it is Poison Ivy. But that's just my, kind of opinion on that. I think it's an interesting pick. I'll say that. Now, moving on, I want to talk about one that is not a villain. And this is one that I find very interesting because she has made an appearance throughout comics, video games, and even she appeared in, Keaton's Batman. That is Vicky Vale, of course. Vicky Vale is a DC Comics journalist and love interest of Bruce Wayne. She's often associated with Batman. She was created by Bill Finger and Lou Sayer Schwartz, and she first appeared in 1948. So she's been around for a while. She's a well-known photojournalist for the Gotham Gazette, and she has an on-again, off-again relationship with Bruce Wayne, but is unaware of his identity as Batman. However, she has speculated that they are the same person. And this is an interesting pick because, again, she has appeared throughout multiple things and she's been around a while, but, oddly enough, she's not really one you hear talked about a ton when it comes to, Batman and his love interest. You usually hear someone like Talia al Ghul or, you have Rachel Dawes. I think it was Rachel Dawes from... I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Nolan's Batman movies, of course. But this one is an interesting pick for me. And again, Scarlett Johansson definitely fits the design of the character. I mean, white woman, red hair, younger to medium age, pretty fit. And not to mention, going beyond looks, Scarlett Johansson definitely has the range to play someone. Because I feel like Vicky Vale could be a really well done complicated character, because if she's playing the love interest of Bruce and she's also a photojournalist, you could have a lot of fun with that, I guess. And Scarlett Johansson is definitely a strong actress. I don't think that's a hot take. I have seen I feel like she does not get the respect that she deserves, I will say, but I don't think it's a secret that she's a strong actress. So I think Vicky Vale would be a great pick for her, honestly. Do I think it's Vicky Vale? Probably not. I really don't. I don't know if they even will give Robert Pattinson's Batman a love interest. I feel like, maybe they will, depending on how playboy they make his Bruce Wayne. Because obviously in the first one, his Bruce Wayne was like a hermit. And he realizes he has to do better for the city of Gotham. And part of that comes with actually being Bruce Wayne. And, those of you that are Batman fans, you know exactly what I mean by that. Part of the whole shtick, part of the whole thing that makes his character, make it work, I guess, is, Bruce has to be Bruce and he has to show off and be very flashy to distract from the fact that he is Batman. But also he has to contribute to the city and all these other things. Anyways, I think Vicky Vale would be a strong pick. I think she's an underutilized character in the Batman mythos. So I think it would be awesome to see her, especially in such a big movie, because this movie will be huge, especially with how long, they've made the fans wait. I think there's no doubt that this will be a big project. So what better time than any to bring her back into the spotlight. Now, moving on, I want to talk about my third and, final pick that I kind of want to mention. This is one I've thought a lot about. Really quick, I was going to include Harley briefly, but I kind of walked back on that because, yes, we do have the Joker. I understand Barry Keoghan is playing the Joker canonically in this universe, but I feel like we've gotten so much Joker Harley that at least I'm hoping, his Joker will not be the main villain of this one, and that was more so like a cameo and a nice little way to say, hey, We didn't forget about Batman's main villain. He's here, he exists, but we're just not using him right now. And I really like that. And don't get me wrong, I would not be mad at the fact that Scarlett Johansson is cast as Harley Quinn, because I think she could kill that too. That's the thing with any of these, though. She could do good in any of these roles, any of these characters. Now, my thing is, I don't really want a Harley because, we just got Lady Gaga. We have Tara Strong in the animated universe, obviously. We have Margot Robbie, and we have, assuming at least, some version of a DCEU Harley Quinn from James Gunn. Well, that is if DC doesn't get bought out, of course. But either way, we'll add her in here as like an honorable mention, but I don't think it's a real possibility she's going to be playing Harley. My third and final pick, however, is of course, well, maybe not of course, Andrea Beaumont, also known as the Phantasm. Now, if you don't know who this is, she is a supervillain and anti-hero, kind of, created by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, and designed by Bruce Timm. Beaumont first appeared as the main antagonist in the 1993 DCAU film Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is a personal favorite of mine, not just in terms of Batman animated stuff, but honestly, movies in general. This is such a strong movie. And if you haven't seen it, I totally recommend you do. If you want me to talk more about it in depth, I'm happy to make a video about it because I have more than enough to yap about for an entire video. But this is where she was established as the fiance of Bruce Wayne Bruce Wayne / Batman. Dana Delaney provided the voice work for Andrea, and Stacy Keach provided the electronically modified voice of her Phantasm alter ego. This is interesting, however, because this is a mix of kind of two things, and this is a mix of, two things that I wanted, and that is, as I've mentioned, Batman, in terms of female characters, everyone jumps to villains. Even Talia al Ghul, who is a love interest, is widely known, I feel like, as a, well, I guess not maybe a villain, but, she's definitely the one talked about most. And then you got Vicky Vale, of course, who I just talked about, but she's not even a villain at all. This is a fun one because it's a mix of love interest and villain. You have the interesting side where apparently Bruce Wayne was engaged. Now, of course, for the Batman 2, unless they really go bold and somehow pull it off, swing for the fences and say that this Bruce was engaged, I don't think they're going to do that. They might have to tweak her story a little bit, but given the fact that she was introduced in Batman the Animated Series movie, she's kind of a newer-ish character, and also she's a lesser-known character. I think a lot of people would be okay with them changing the exact backstory, depending on how you do it. Not to mention, if they, adapt it well enough compared to that movie, she's a very interesting, engaging, and entertaining character. And having that dynamic of, ex-lovers, especially ex-fiancés, turn to villains and hero, fighting one another. And not to mention that whole reveal could be really fun. And they could be doing a whole red herring, like maybe she is cast as that and they say she's not. And even the trailers kind of lead it on to the fact that she's not. And then they do a whole red herring and it turns out she actually is. Like, that's the problem when you cast stuff like this. You have Batman fans that are so obsessive and so detailed that they're going to catch anything. So if you do want it to be a surprise, you have to do something like that. Now, if you don't, then you could just adapt her one-to-one. Like I said, maybe not with the engagement thing, because I don't know, this is still kind of a younger Bruce, and there's been no hints, at least, to a engagement. But depending on the length of the movie, maybe you can establish that. Maybe she won't be the main villain of this movie even. Maybe she will just be introduced as the love interest, but they'll get engaged, something may happen, and they'll have a falling out, and that's when she becomes a villain, which could set up a third movie. But that would be very engaging as well. And that's the thing. I have faith in Matt Reeves. He knows what he's doing. For me personally, I still think it took a little bit too long to get this movie made, but they've got the wheels on the ground now. They know what they're doing. And I have faith that no matter who she ends up playing, it's going to be a good pick. Scarlett Johansson is one of my favorite actresses right now. And she killed it in Jurassic World, not Dominion, I'm sorry, Rebirth. And I'm excited to have her join the Batman universe because it's honestly a pick I never in a million years thought about at all. But as soon as people said her name, I was like, oh shit, that is such a good pick for, to bring into this fold. And her with Robert Pattinson, I'm just thinking of like the interviews they would be doing together and the dynamic. And that just really interests me for that alone. So I can't even imagine seeing that on screen, seeing them in their roles. It's very exciting stuff. So that's what I have to say. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Why or why not? And who would you pick for her to play in this Batman movie? Knowing some of you guys have such good picks, it kind of blows me away because I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. But hopefully you liked what I had to say about this. If you stuck around this long, I do appreciate it. And until next time, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Probably the next Batman video, knowing this channel.